Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Thanks for checking out my video today. My name is Chris. We talk all about pond stuff here on this channel. I've got a ton of really cool videos here with all kinds of information for you on just about every topic you can think of when it comes to koi ponds, waterfalls, water gardens, filtration, the whole bit, okay? So please check out my channel, check out some videos. I hope they help you out. And today's video we're doing a whole explanation on test kits, okay? Testing your water, why to test your water, how to test your water, when to test your water, and so on and so forth, okay? So first off, this is my little trusty test kit here that I take with me in my truck all the time, every day. This is just a simple little test kit. It tests for pH, ammonia, nitrates, and phosphates. And we'll talk all about that here in a little bit. So why do we want to test our pond water? Okay. Basically, we need to know how safe and healthy our water is that our fish are living in, okay? Our fish live in an aquatic environment. They live in a surrounding of water, okay? That water has to be healthy for them, okay? It can't be full of toxins. Just as we live and breathe the air around us, okay, we need clean air, right? If we're breathing in, toxic chemicals, right, we're going to get sick. Same with the fish, okay? So our test kits and various different tests that we can test our water for ensure to us that the environment that our fish and plants are living in is safe and healthy, okay? So everyone who owns a pond should own a test kit. All right, it's a simple thing, all right? And I mean, a kit like this is probably, I want to say, I don't know, $25, $30. But it can be a lifesaver, okay? Literally, all right? It's a good habit to get into testing your water periodically, all right? And understanding what your testing means, all right? So that's what I'm going to try to help you out here with a little bit today. So what are we testing for in the water, okay? Why? What are we looking for that we need to test for, all right? Well, there's a whole slew of different things, all right? But we're going to just talk about some of the more common basic ones first. pH, all right? pH is basically stands for the power of hydrogen, and it measures the acidity to alkalinity, okay? Acid to base scale in your pond, all right? We want to keep that as close to neutral as possible. It's a weird scale, okay, because it starts with very acidic and it moves to less acidic, to neutral, to less basic, to more basic, okay? It's a scale basically 1 through 10, 7 being neutral, all right? We want to keep our ponds around 7. Anything between 6 and 8 is acceptable and fine for the fish, okay? But basically pH is a test of the base and acidity of your pond, okay? I have a whole nother video talking about the different chemicals for ponds and adjusting pH levels and all that. You can check that out at any time. I'm not going to get into a lot of crazy detail here. I just want to go over some of the tests, okay, and what they are. Okay, so pH. The next 3 are all kind of linked together, and that is ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates, okay? Now these 3 are linked together basically because they're all part of a biological system called the nitrogen cycle, all right? Again, I don't want to get too crazy, but if you own a pond, you should know what the nitrogen cycle is, because that basically gives you a whole understanding of what's going on in your pond's environment, okay? Biological filtrations are based on the nitrogen cycle, okay? So if you have a biofilter on your pond, the nitrogen cycle is basically going to tell you what that means, okay? Now, I have a whole nother video on the nitrogen cycle, okay? So if you don't know what that is, please check out that video. It'll really help you out with understanding your pond, okay? But basically, in a nutshell, ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates are what we test for. Ammonia is the first step of this nitrogen cycle. It's produced by organic plant material, leaves, algae that's decaying, rotting, excess waste from your fish, okay? You feed your fish, they poop, okay? They generate ammonia. All this stuff builds up in the pond and become very toxic, okay? So we test for that. Within this whole system, this biological system, we have a type of bacteria that turns the ammonia into nitrites. Nitrites are also very toxic, okay? So sometimes we test for them as well. And then there's a second type of bacteria that turns those nitrites into nitrates. Now, nitrates are far less toxic in your pond. However, over time, if the levels build up really high, then they can start to affect the fish and cause problems. So we definitely want to test for the nitrates as well. This particular kit does not test for nitrites. Okay, the middle one. It tests for the ammonia on this side, not the nitrites, but then the nitrates as the end product. So it's testing the beginning product and the end product in this biological filter, okay, in this nitrogen cycle. So it's important that we know what's going on in this cycle, okay? So between the pH and the ammonia, nitrites, and nitrates, those are really the four primary things that we test for, okay? This particular kit happens to have a test for phosphates. I'm not really too concerned about this. I'm not saying it's not important. You should never test it. You have it in the test kit, why not, okay? Phosphates are basically sometimes added to city water supplies that help. I heard that helps to stop corrosion on pipes. It also, basically phosphates are used in plant fertilizers. Okay, your fertilizer you're using on your trees and shrubs and your lawn contains phosphates. All right, so algae is a plant. So the added level of phosphates in your water can help encourage algae growth. Okay, so just kind of knowing what your phosphate levels are can help with your algae blooms as well. Okay, not super important, but again, it's something else to test for, and they include it in this kit. Some other things that are important to test for could be your alkalinity or total hardness in the pond, and that has to do with the mineral content in your water. Okay, the more metals and mineral content in your water, the higher your hardness is. I'm not going to get crazy into it. Basically, if you have a well, you probably have harder water than somebody who has a water softening system in their homes. The water softener is basically removing that mineral content out of the water, and it makes it softer. From what I understand, for the most part, a little bit harder water in a pond is more beneficial, okay, because it contains things like calcium and carbonate, which increases the ability of pH to balance itself, okay? Anyway, I'm not going to get all crazy into that. We don't need to be a chemist to do all this stuff. We just have to basically understand what you're testing for and why, all right? So there are some test kits for hardness or alkalinity in the water. All right. Also, if you put salt in your pond regularly, you may want to have a salt tester. Okay. Testing for salt is pretty important because we need to keep that salt within a specific range. If it gets too high, it can start to affect the fish and the plants in the pond. Okay, if it's too low, it's going to be ineffective. All right, so having a nice tester for the salt levels can be very beneficial. Now, typically, the way to test for salt is with a little digital meter. All right. They are a little more expensive. I mean, this was, like I said, like 30 bucks or something like that for this test kit, whereas a salt meter could be anywhere from $75 to $100, okay, and even more if you get something fancy. But it's important to know that salt level, okay? I don't have one here with me, but they are very, very handy if you keep salt in your pond, all right? Also keep in mind, I have a whole nother video on salt in your pond, using salt in your pond. Just keep in mind that the salt does not evaporate out of the pond. Your water does, but the salt does not. So salt levels can fluctuate, depending on your water level, evaporation, adding new water, cleaning filters, right? It gets crazy. So having a nice salt meter is a good idea. Okay. There's other things too. Okay, there's like dissolved oxygen meters. I mean, you can go crazy. To me, dissolved oxygen is extremely important in your pond, but it's kind of a common sense thing to figure out. We don't need to spend $150 or $200 on some fancy dissolved oxygen meter. We just need to keep our ponds aerated. All right, be it a nice, heavy, strong waterfall, right? An air system, an air pump, especially winter and summer have different needs for aeration. Summertime, warm water holds less dissolved oxygen than in the winter in cold water, okay? In the winter, our fish metabolism slow down. Their intake of oxygen is less. However, they still need air. They still need oxygen in their water, all right? In the summertime, our fish's metabolism is in full force. They're taking in all that oxygen as they're swimming around and eating and moving, and okay? And the warm water holds less of it. So we need to make sure that we have plenty of oxygen in the pond. Okay, so common sense on this one. I don't see spending, $150 on an oxygen meter. That some of them can be a little tricky to use. When all we need to do is make sure we have an air pump or keep our waterfalls running. All right. Now, a little, water trickling over some rocks into the pond might not be enough aeration. You need agitation in that water. Okay. So just, think about that one. And if you see your fish up at the surface gasping for air, we know there's a problem. Okay. Especially in the summer on warm nights when you get up in the morning, okay? If your fish are up at that surface, we need more air, all right? Okay, so that's basically, some simple things to test for. It gets endless, okay? Saltwater aquariums, especially reef tanks, saltwater reef tanks. There's 25 different things you can test for, okay? And they're all really important, okay? Magnesium levels, calcium levels, sulfur levels, iodine levels, tons of different things, okay? Koi ponds, water gardens, we don't have to be that crazy. But what we do test for, pH, ammonia, nitrates, salt and stuff, can be really important, okay? So if you're testing, another little tip for you here. If you're testing pH, okay, please test your pH first thing bright and early in the morning. All right, it's important to test the pH first thing in the morning. not in the afternoon. Your readings in the afternoon are not going to be as true. And there's reasons for that. It's basically because of algae blooms and photosynthesis and all this crazy stuff. Again, I have other videos talk about all that kind of stuff. But we want to test for pH first thing in the morning, okay? That's your most accurate reading, all right? So, now, like using these test kits, okay? Very important that you get yourself a decent kit, not the cheapest thing on the shelf, because the cheapest thing on the shelf might not be the most accurate. Now, on the flip side, the most expensive thing, right? Some of these digital or electronic meters and probes and all this stuff can be extremely accurate, but they're also very expensive, and some of them are pretty difficult to learn how to use. Some of them, they're stock solutions where you have to calibrate the meter, you know, every time before you use it, and it just gets a little crazy. They're great, they're extremely accurate, okay? You don't need to go that crazy, all right? But you know, get something decent, because, you know, for example, I just had a client I built a pond for recently that called me up and said, hey Chris, you know, my pH is sky high in a pond. I'm worried that all my fish are going to die and all this stuff. And I was like, all right. I said, well, what's your pH? And he says, it's between 9 and 10. And right off the bat, I'm like, you're worried about your fish. They should all be dead already. You know, if your pH is that high, I said, something's wrong. So I went over there, and I go there, and the fish are all swimming around just fine. They're eating, they're acting normal. And I'm like, there's no way your pH is between 9 and 10 right now. They'd all be dead, okay? So I tested the water. In the morning, I got 7.5. In the afternoon, I got 8. Okay, so there was nothing really wrong with his pH. It's just the test kit that he had was no good. All right, so you know, definitely, you know, keep that in mind. Okay, okay. Now, you know, owning a test kit is essential if you own a pond. Okay. What really drives me nuts, it drives me crazy, I can't stand this, all right, is when I'm in a pond supply store or an aquarium shop or pet shop or whatever, and somebody comes in carrying a jar of water or a cup of water with saran wrap over the top and a rubber band around it, and says, my fish are all dying, can you test my water? And I just sit there like, you gotta be kidding me. Now you want to test your water, right? When all your fish are dying, now you come in with your little cup of water and say, can you test this? Okay, it's like driving a car and you run out of gas on the highway, right? And you're stuck on the side of the road. Well, it's a little late now, don't you think, to put gas in the car, right? Like, you should have done that before. Well, you should have tested your water before. You should have been testing it all along. You would have never had this problem. Coming in now and saying, oh, my fish are dying. It's like, it's too late. All right? So the whole idea with a test kit, right, is it's kind of like that gas gauge in the car, right? When the gas gauge is full, you're good. You got nothing to worry about. When it goes down below half, it get down around a quarter, you're saying, oh boy, pretty soon I got to go get gas, right? If you wait for it to go to empty and you stall, the car's dead on the side of the road, all right? So your test kit, right, is keeping that tank full, right? You can test that water and you can say, okay, everything's good, I'm fine. All right, or maybe you test it at some point and you say, oh man, look at that, you know, my pH is up a little bit, or my ammonia level is getting a little high. Okay, well, it's a lot easier to correct a little problem that's a little high or a little low or whatever than it is to come in when all your fish are dying. Okay, because at that point it could be a major thing to fix. Okay, so we want to test our water periodically. All right, so how often do I need to test my water? Well, there's no specific answer, okay? The more often, the better, all right? Once a week? Nah, probably not. You probably don't have to test it once a week. Once every 2 weeks, that's pretty good. That would be great, all right? Maybe once a month when you do all your regular maintenance on the pond, maybe you clean your filters out, you clean things, you do regular maintenance, do water changes once a month. That's a good time to test your water, okay? So once a month would be great, right? Once every couple weeks, even better yet, all right? The more you stay up on this and the more you're aware of what's going on in your pond, right, the easier it is to fix if you have a problem later, okay? Don't wait till all your fish are dead, right? It just drives me nuts. I see that and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, okay? If I owned a pond store, a pond shop, okay, whatever, and somebody came in with a jar of water and said, can you test my water? All my fish are dying. My response would be, okay, I will test your water for free under one condition. You walk out of here buying a test kit, okay? Otherwise, I'm going to charge you to test that water. Because that's ridiculous, right? Buy the test kit. It doesn't cost a lot of money, and you need to know what's going on in your pond, all right? Don't wait till everything's dead. Anyway, okay, so we talked basically about, you know, why to test your water, how to test your water, okay, when, all right, and you know, whatever test kit you buy, whatever, it's a kit, drops like this, or strips, or a digital meter, read the instructions, all right? Please read the instructions and know how to use it, because every little kit, every little test is a little different, all right? And if you're not doing it right, your results aren't going to be accurate. And if they're not accurate, it's not going to be beneficial, right? Just for example, right? This kit has these little vials, right? You fill the little vial up to, there's a line on here. You fill it up to the little line with water, okay? pH test kit. pH test says add 5 drops. So you add 5 drops into here, right? Put the cap on, shake it. Then we get a little color chart, and we're going to put this down next to it, and we're going to match the color in the vial to the color on the chart, and that tells us our reading, all right? So the pH is add 5 drops. The ammonia is add 8 drops, okay? No big deal, but if you don't put the right amount of drops in, or put more or less, it's not going to be accurate, okay? Test strips are funny. They're very easy, but every one of them is a little different. Some of them you got to put in the water and you hold in the water for 10 seconds. Then you got to pull it out. And some of them you test on your little color chart immediately. Some of them you got to dip in there for 30 seconds and then you take it out and you got to wait a minute and then check it. They're all different, right? So make sure you are following the directions, because if the strip says to wait, you know, 30 seconds before you test your color on here, and you wait 10 seconds, it's not going to be the right color. It's not going to give you an accurate reading, all right? So, you know, read the instructions, but get yourself a test kit, right? And keep up with what's going on in your pond. It's much easier to fix a small problem than a major problem, okay? Yeah, I think we've covered just about everything here. I hope it helped you out and you kind of understand what these test kits are about now and why we need to do this. All right. Thanks for watching. You know, please hit the like button if it helped you out, and you know, check out those other videos on my channel. Subscribe to the channel. I've got a ton of information here for you guys. You know, I really want you to understand your ponds and be successful, you know, with your pond keeping and or building, if you're looking to build a pond, whatever it may be. I have a lot of information here and a lot of different topics, and hopefully, you know, it'll help you guys out. All right. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you back again in another video. All right. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.